What's up guys, it's Mike from Job Ready English, and this is a teaching video. So we get hundreds of comments every week, try to respond to every single one of them, and people also ask us questions. They ask me how to do stuff. So just so you know, if you're wondering how you do something and you leave me a comment, maybe I'll make you a video and help you out. So that could be cool. So make sure you drop a comment down below if there's something that you want to learn or you want me to teach you. 2 weeks ago, hopefully this comment should be popping up on the screen, Liv wrote on our Grant Thornton pass interview video, just found out that I passed my interview, thank you. Now on to the case study. No idea how to even approach this, so any tips would be great. Liv, I said to you I was going to respond by last week and that didn't happen, so I apologise. So this video is for you and anybody else who's struggling with case studies. Now, so for those of you who've been through my assessment centre videos, you would have heard me talk about case studies. What I'm going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to break down the framework that I've used to approach case studies with clients since 2013 and how I refine that framework. Secondly, I'm going to point out some obvious mistakes that people make when doing case studies and how to avoid them. And thirdly, I'm going to point you towards some resources which you can use to find hundreds of case studies you can use to practice for absolutely nothing. But if you're interested in learning a bit more about how to do this and watching me teach you, then you can check out our Acing the Assessment Centre bundle down in the link in the description below. So first of all, let's talk about the framework. Something that I always do when I break down a problem or a process down is I create a framework. Now, where did I find this from? Well, in 2013, when I first started to coach international students, I would have the opportunity to mentor and coach super bright international students from all around the world, mainly from China, and they were coming up across case studies. So I actually have written well over 100 case studies to mimic the process for lots of large companies, whether that be big consulting firms or investment banks, and I would sit there and train them face to face. I actually did that for 5 years. So I always find it quite funny when people will leave me comments and like, you don't even know what you're talking about, this is rubbish, I know better. And I'm like, look, I've literally done this for the last 10 years. And to me, all case studies are the same. Some are, kind of have varying levels of complexity and length. Case studies in my book have gotten a lot easier over time because employers in general are looking for something that is repeatable and scalable. There was a time, I can remember once for JP Morgan front office, you'd have to pile through like 100-page plus case study about an oil company which I actually wrote, and it was just completely mental to be able to get through that much in one time. Now, I tend to kind of buddy up case studies with written exercise or business reports. The only difference is that you will either write your answer or speak your answer. So if I say this for case studies, I'm also saying this for written exercises. So let's talk about the framework. Here is a handy infographic, just how to think about the 5 parts of solving a case study, which is you read a set piece of material, you answer questions. These questions are probably based on solving a standard business problem, which is company A has a problem, which option would you choose from B, C, D, E, or F, and why? The options can choose, but to be honest with you, most case studies kind of come down to that core question. You would then present your answers to the questions to an assessor, whether that be face-to-face or via video. And why do you get case studies? Well, it really tests your problem solving and presentation skills. This is not really to be confused, and it is the subject of a completely different video, to be frankly honest with you, with something which is quite common in big consulting firms and also some front office roles, which are known as market sizing case studies, also known as like how many X are there and why. There are about 5 to 7 different versions of this question. Be happy to make a video about that. I know that we have had requests before from people who wanted me to dig more into case studies. I do personally feel that there are some great resources out there. I would say probably the best in the business at this is a great site called managementconsulted.com, and they really zoom in on management consulting. That's not really been a big point of emphasis for me. It's just something that I've come across in my travels over the 10 years that I've coached students and professionals. So that's kind of the 4-step framework and the why. So let's sort of break down each individual element to point out some obvious mistakes and things that you can do to get better at case studies. Number one, reading a set piece of material. So always have pen and paper to hand. Break down your timings. This is really important. Most people I observe with case studies get caught out by time, because quite simply what they will do is they will start from the beginning and try to read to the end, which is not a good idea, particularly if you have more pages than minutes. So most people, if they're reasonably fast at reading, can read a page a minute. I would say some people it's more like a page every 2 minutes or every 3 minutes. So if you've got 20 minutes to prep for a case study and it's 20 pages, you can almost assume that you're not going to get through all the material. So the first thing that you want to do when you get the material is skim and scan. So you want to go through, look at the headlines, look at the images, look at the sources, see if anything kind of catches your eye. The next thing that you want to do is acquaint yourself with the question. What specifically are you being asked to do? What is it that you've got to solve? What are the things that you're looking out for? And be prepared for a case study to have completely irrelevant information. There may be things which send you off on a wild goose chase that are deliberately put in there as filler. And that's something that I used to do quite a lot when I was writing case studies, because you're trying to make sure that people are paying attention. Ultimately, this is for a high-level knowledge worker or problem-solving role. So you want people to be able to critically analyze information and say, A is relevant, B is not relevant. So once you have a really firm grasp of what it is that you're being asked, and also derivatives or sub-questions that you're being asked, the next thing that you want to do is break down your time. So you want to think about question weighting. This is very easy if you're just being asked one question, but most of the time it'll be 2, 3, maybe even 4 questions. Now the truth is only one of those questions is going to have serious weight behind it. The rest of them are just kind of like, what are the 3 environmental factors that are affecting this hotel based in Barbados, for example? That's fairly easy for you to pick up, but it'd be like, what are the 6 different strategies that you would choose for blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we already know that that's going to take a lot of time. So what you do is, so this is first of all how you'd split up your time. You want to spend 1/3 of your time reading and 2/3 of your time either writing or preparing to present your information. One of the things that's really quite off-putting is when somebody's trying to give a presentation and they're staring at their notes, they're mumbling under their breath, they're going, oh no, that was on this page and whatever. It's better for you actually to present less and to know less, but to do it in a confident way. And I think that's much more impressive for the interviewer. Exactly the same if you're writing out your answer to your question. Generally, if you're coming across case studies in some kind of job simulation or automated, video-based environment, they'll be pretty simple. They'll be kind of like 2 to 5 pages. I know a lot of big companies who do different types of case studies, and they're really quite short, simple, and to the point. Once you understand the questions and you've weighted your time accordingly, then you want to rigorously stick to your timings. The reason why I say this is most of people will see some kind of time slippage. So as they're going through, it's like, right, I've got 2 minutes on my intro, I've got 5 minutes on question 1, I need to give 15 minutes to question 2, and then I've got 2 minutes left for the conclusion, for example. And you just want to keep an eye on the time. The reason being is you need to go into this process assuming that you're not going to cover everything. Most people try and cover everything and end up missing a lot and just answering the first question really well, and then it just doesn't look great. Basic kind of first principle of a case study or written exercise is you want to complete the task that you've been given. Now you may not complete it very well, which is why at the end of this video I'll be talking about good resources that you can use for free case studies that you can practice yourself, because that is the best practice. But in the beginning, you won't be very good at it. So you just want to kind of give your bare bones answer and complete a case study. Well, you want to be as data heavy as possible, and you want to be as specific as possible. One thing that I've noticed, particularly for interns, graduates, even people with MBAs, is that they'll tend to just really quickly jump to their opinion without basing this in data. Now, this is really quite important, for example, for management consulting and for different types of consulting roles, which is, do you have that analytical, data-driven mindset, by all means, for example, when you're doing market sizing case studies, you'll need to have some kind of inference or assumptions, which you will explain as you're delivering your answers, but you should definitely be trying to base it in fact, or at least some kind of reasonable logic, and explaining where you've got stuff from. Otherwise, people will just kind of pull answers out of their head, and I've got no idea how you got to that answer. So you systematically lay out those steps. So you want to refer to keywords, page numbers, tables, sources. That's why having a pen and paper to hand is really helpful, because you want these things in your notes, because these are things that you need to remember when you're doing a presentation. And also in your notes, and this sounds, again, very simple. Most of my advice is simple, but you want to make sure that your notes are quite large and they're legible. For example, I have awful handwriting. Doing something quickly to do a presentation, I tend to write in capital letters across 2 lines. So I can, as I'm looking down at something, which really is going to be, a foot and a half away, and also I'm distracted, I'm under pressure, I need to be able to easily read those things. So I've constructed my answer, I've done the case study, and it comes to doing the presentation. Introduce yourself. Tell them what you're going to talk about. A really good thing to remember is you want to assume that your assessor has no idea what you're talking about. You don't want to assume that they've read the same material as you. That's something that people often do. So you'd introduce yourself, you'd say what you're going to talk about today, you'd outline the structure of your presentation, and then you kind of launch into it and go through slowly and methodically outlining your answer. Your answer essentially would kind of only have a subjective or an opinion in your conclusion. So initially you want to be outlining the steps, the stages, the analysis that you've gone through. And of course there is variance within this, and I've talked about other types of case studies, so it's not a case of one size fits all, because as ever in all of my videos, I'm trying to make content for an infinite number of possibilities, and inevitably I'll get some person or persons who will leave like, well, that's not specifically for this role, for this country. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry that I can't make a video for every single person in the world applying for this company. How silly of me. So these things are to be, taken, and generalized upon, so I can give you something that's helpful. If you want like advice that's super specific, then just check out one of our bundles, like the Acing Assessment Center bundle. Go through, make sure you deliver your conclusion. Ask them if they have any questions. If you get asked questions, this tends to be a big concern for people when they're delivering presentation for case studies. They'll say something like, oh, I don't know what questions they're going to ask me. They're going to try and they want to, first of all, be asking questions where they're trying to dig into the methodology or the logic that you have gone through, maybe challenging your opinions. The important thing is take your time to answer those questions. You don't have to agree with the assessor, but it should all be based in logic, data, and facts. You don't just want to kind of just be throwing stuff out there and being like, well, this is what I think, and actually I think this. Like, don't get defensive, be expansive. And also don't forget, you can ask questions to the assessor as well. The main mistake that I see is that people rush. People try to do everything when they really don't have the time to do that. And they don't have the understanding that the exercise is constructed to be done in such a way where actually you can't do everything. Finally, so down in the link in the description below, we're going to provide Google Doc where you can find hundreds of different case studies. I went through and refined this. We released this ages ago in our 7 Steps to Get Hired. So there are hundreds of case studies from MIT School of Management, from Merlot University, from Acacia Institute of Case Studies, which is very cool. It's from the Wayback When Machine, and also from the University of British Columbia. I know somebody inevitably was like, how do I find a specific case study for this specific thing I want to do? Go and buy it. Or spend hours and hours trying to find something on the internet. But to be honest with you, you don't deserve to get everything for free. Sometimes, and I've spoken about this before in other videos, for example, of online tests, I really don't understand at times where people would spend hours and hours wasting their time looking for something for free, which is probably of poor quality, when they could just pay for knowledge that has already been curated and shorten down the amount of time that it takes. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please Give it a thumbs up, drop me a comment down below, let me know if you enjoyed this video, what other types of videos that you'd like me to make in terms of questions that you have, and yeah, I'll add it to the list. And Liv, I hope you find that useful and it comes at the right time for you. Bye!